In 1.4.5, they fixed the Shroomite Helmet. Prior to 1.4.5, the Shroomite headpieces only applied their damage boosts to their respective weapons. Now, this seems fine, but you have to remember ammunition has a damage value too. Due to this, if the ammo's damage was high enough relative to the weapon, such as in, say, rocket launchers, this lack of an ammo boost hit hard. In fact, it hit hard enough that for most rocket launchers, it was actually better to run the Adamant-type mask over the Shroomite Helmet, because the former's buffs applied to both weapons and ammo. Even with the Shroomite Helmet's uniquely strong multiplicative damage buff, which grows more powerful as you have more other damage bonuses, it still wasn't enough to compensate for the massive losses of not boosting ammo damage. So, don't use the Shroomite Helmet, I said. It's bad, I also said. Well, things have changed. In 1.4.5, they finally made it so that the Shroomite headpieces damage buffs apply to ammo as well as weapons. This was a massive buff, especially the Shroomite Helmet. They knew this though, so they toned down the buff from 15% multiplicative to 12% multiplicative. Overall, they said that it should, quote, slightly buff most ranged weapons. So how does it look between the Adamant-type mask and Shroomite headpieces now? You'd think that the Shroomite headpieces would pull up, and away with their now fixed, beefy, multiplicative buffs. But not really. We're going to analyze this by seeing what level of existing additive damage buffs you need for the Shroomite headpieces to be better than the Adamant-type mask. Remember, the Shroomite headpiece's multiplicative buff, which scales with existing damage buffs, is what makes it so powerful. We're just going to see just how much juice you need to make that scaling multiplicative buff outweigh the baseline more powerful additive buff of the Adamant-type mask. If you attack an enemy with no defense and with no crit chance buffs, you need an additive damage buff of plus 97.5% for the Shroomite headpiece to beat the Adamant-type mask. That's actually a pretty burdensome mark to reach, even in late hard mode. With full Shroomite armor, Ranger Emblem, Avenger Emblem, Destroyer Emblem, Sniper Scope, Plenty Satisfied, Wrath, and 5 menacing accessories, you get plus 97.5% damage. So yeah, it would really take being quite damage-oriented just to match the Adamant-type mask. This is because the Adamant-type mask's edge and crit chance is actually quite powerful on its own. It has 5% more than the helmet. But obviously, you aren't going to have no crit chance buffs late game, and you aren't going to be fighting enemies with no defense either. So let's look at that loadout again. With that loadout I just described, you will have 55% crit chance. Add rage, and it's 65%. Let's also say you attack an enemy with a reasonable 30 defense. Suddenly, the equation changes. The Adamant-type mask's crit chance edge over the Shroomite Helmet dilutes when you actually have crit chance, and since crits happen after defense, more defense weakens crit chance relative to raw damage too. With this setup, you only need plus 59% damage to match the Adamant-type mask, which is really achievable. With this loadout providing plus 97.5% damage, the Shroomite headpieces are now, in fact, 1.7% better relative to final damage. And for a max damage-oriented setup and such, the gap can be as much as around 2%. So what can we get from this? Well, the fix did its job. Shroomite headpieces are now better than the Adamant-type mask. However, it is only by 1 or 2 percentage points in most cases. A lot lower than the margins the Adamant-type mask had over the Shroomite Helmet when using rockets in 1.4.4, which is around 4%. That 3% loss from 15% to 12% really was quite impactful. It really is surprising how little its advantage over the Adamant-type mask is, even with its powerful multiplicative damage buff. Considering how small the lead is, it might actually still be better to use the Adamant-type mask, as it opens you up to using multiple weapons. Remember, with the Shroomite headpieces, you're locked into one of 3 categories while fighting. With the mask, you're free to choose whatever you want. If mid-fight weapon choice appeals to you, the Adamant-type mask might still actually be better. Maybe 2% damage is worth the flexibility. It's all up to you. Hello, if you enjoyed this announcement, please consider subscribing as it supports the channel. Similar videos are all around. Either way, thank you for watching, and good day, and goodbye. See you next week.